So there we have it. The market's trading lower yet again yesterday. What sense are you making of the market movement we're seeing at the moment?
Morning, Alicia. I think the market generally has been trading flat this week with marginal losses you mentioned on Monday and Tuesday. I think what's largely driving those losses is actually the performance of Nigerian Breweries. Nigerian Breweries is the most capitalized stock on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and it lost the full 5% on Monday and about 4.9% yesterday. And I think that's what's largely driving the decline in the markets. Other than that, I think the market is largely trading fairly flat.
Well,
EcoBank, investors.
Sorry to interrupt.
I was going to say, as investors await the results, I think we're entering into results season, possibly from next month. And I think most investors are holding out and waiting, playing a waiting game against the results announcements next month.
Well, in that context, we have EcoBank amongst the banking stocks really standing out over the last couple of trading sessions, with sellers seeming to be holding on account of price appreciation on that counter. What's driving interest in EcoBank at the moment?
It isn't exactly clear, because if you look at their September 09 numbers, they actually released a loss in their period to September 09. I think if you look at what's happening with the price of EcoBank, I think they were on technical suspension for most of 2009. And I think they came off technical suspension in the last quarter, when we had the beginnings of the sort of actions taken in the banking sector. And they actually lost about 85% in the last quarter of last year. And I think they've probably reached some sort of resistance level. And that's why we're seeing appreciation in the price.
Interesting that you say that, because what's being noted is that, you know, you've got the likes of your troubled banks like Oceanic Bank, Intercontinental and Afribank as well on the uptrend, despite the fact that we saw Oceanic falling back a bit yesterday. Nevertheless, I mean, the question out there is to what extent all the activity we're seeing in the banking sector specifically simply boils down to the fact that we're resistance level testing at the moment, and the fact that prices are just sitting too low to resist.
I think that's definitely a factor, but another factor to consider is also the potential of M&A activity with those particular banks. I think that's probably what's making investors quite bullish about the share price at the moment. And apart from that, there's also the possible introduction of the AMC, which should absorb most of the toxic assets on these banks as well. So I think those three factors is probably what's contributing to the to sort of like any appreciation we're seeing in the share prices of the troubled banks.
All of that having been said, despite the value that many of the brokers I've been speaking to see in Nigerian breweries, we saw that counter falling back for yet another session yesterday, falling back the full 5% yet again. What's your view on the counter right now?
On Nigerian breweries?
Yes.
Okay. I think if you look at the dividend announcement last week, I know they declared about an 86 kobo final dividend, which brings the dividend payouts in the dividend announcements near to about 3.69 naira, which is up from the 3.46 naira that they declared for 2008. And so I'm not quite sure what's happening, but I think there's been a bit of a panic maybe by some investors who are dumping those shares. Possibly they were expecting the final dividend payments to be in line with what they'd declared in the interim dividend announcements. But I think a lot of it is unwarranted. So I believe that we would see the share price of Nigerian breweries stabilize fairly quickly.
In the meantime, in other company news out yesterday, we saw Nampak Nigeria out with trading forecasts for both the 3 and 6 month periods. What did the market make of those trading updates?
Nampak is a small company within the context of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Nonetheless, it's a company that was making losses in 2008. In 2009, I think it turned around a profit. When they released their full year numbers to September, they showed increase in revenues as well as declaring a profit. I think their PBT margin was about 1% or so. Their forecast is showing further growth in revenues, as well as increased margins to about 5%. And I believe that's what the market responded to by showing appreciation in the share price.